And good morning, everyone. Today, what we're going to get started on is we're going to get started on our Project Z that we just got. We've got everything put together. Car's been running great, it's been running great other than the clutch slipping. Today I noticed when you drive it cold, it doesn't slip, but when it starts to warm up, it slips like crazy. So I'm going to go ahead and use this here 6-puck clutch I got that actually was mated to this flywheel, and I didn't use it because I wanted to keep it as stock, like drivability wise, as possible, but that kind of blew up in my face since the clutch is junk. So I'm going to be showing you guys how to do a clutch in a Nissan 300zx today. So first things first, if you couldn't tell, jack your car up, put it on blocks, jack stands, whichever you feel more comfortable with. I'd rather have it on block, especially if it's going to be in the yard. I always jack it from the front subframe and the rear diff brace. First thing you want to do, you want to remove your test pipes, loosen them from the manifold. They'll be 14 millimeter. There will be 6, 3 on each side, and then you'll remove the other 2 bolts after the catalytic converter, which will be another 4 14 mil. If you want, you can remove the full exhaust. That's what I do. Makes it a little bit easier, gives you more room under there when you get to your drive shaft. Yeah. Fortunately, this car is actually a one-piece exhaust, so as soon as I take it off at the manifold, the whole system drops down. It's because they've been re-welded and are all one piece now. I forgot to say, first actually disconnect your battery. Last thing you want to do is have your starter start arcing on you when you go to remove the hot wire. These are the bolts you will remove right on your exhaust. You also want to remove your AIV pipes if you are 90 to 93, might be 92. Be an 8 mil or a Phillips, probably just the 8 mil so you don't strip it out. For the cat side, as I said, mine's welded. Yours will be flanged more than likely. It's just another 4 bolts. Always hit it with some PB Blaster or something similar prior if you don't get in here very often, because it'll more than likely be rusted and seized up a little bit. Now that the exhaust is off, what you'll want to do is here, you can unplug your starter trigger wire, your power wire off your starter, remove your starter, 2 14 mil bolts, or 1 bolt, 1 nut. It should be from factory. 2 14 mil for your slave cylinder. Alright, now, so since I'm here, I'm gonna reach up and pull the wiring harness off and unplug the connections, and I know I can reach each of them without dropping the trans. Your speed sensor, there's 2, where's the third? Here he is. There's our third connection. Got them and this. So now that those are done, we still have our heat shield on here. There should be 6 10 mil or 4 10 mil nuts, and then 2 10 mil bolts. And then you can remove this, get access to your drive shaft. Notable tip, put your hardware back where you got it so you don't have to worry about where it was. Now our next step is remove the drive shaft. You got a 2-piece drive shaft, it's pretty easy. All you do, these 2 17 mil, yeah, 2 17 mil bolts. I've had 19 mil replacements, but just remove these 2. Your bottom shaft will drop out, and you can slide it to the side after you pull the yoke here out of the trans. Alright, so after a little thought, before I do the drive shaft, I'm going to remove the shifter here. It's 12 mil on each side of the shift select rod to remove this middle bolt. And then other than that, you'll just remove these 12 mil bolts on each side, and that will drop your shift support fork, and you can just leave the shifter in car. You don't have to worry about taking it out and to have to put it back in later. You can still do everything from the underside. Makes it way easier in my opinion. Then after that, drop the drive shaft. So then I'm just ready to drop the trans after that. Now when your drive shaft's out, get a jack under your trans. Yeah, here, up here, it really doesn't matter. Sorry, here or up here. This is usually where I balance it from. Either don't really matter. I'm only jacking here because it seemed to be lower at the moment in a little more accessible spot. But you'll remove all 6 of your trans mount bolts, and then you can slowly let your transmission, or not, you can slowly let your jack down, and then you can start to work on your bell housing bolts. So for your bell housing bolts, this is going to be your best friend. 1/2 inch drive with a swivel, 14 mil. That would be to reach your top bell housing bolts, as they'll be a little tricky. Some people rather use like 3 foot of extension from the rear, but I find if you can get an angle right through here with about 1.5 foot, it works just as good. So we'll get to removing these, and then right here is where I balance the trans with my jack, right where the casing or the trans case bolts together, as it's a good pivot point. Once you remove all the bell housing bolts, all you got to do is jack the trans slightly, shake it back and forth, and pull her out. Got all the bell housing bolts loosened. Just lower it the rest of the way. Get your jack positioned correctly. It'll make a world of difference to where you can just pull back on it. Doing this on concrete obviously is way easier. Or if you can put a mat down like what I'm laying on, that'll help a lot. Crap, I didn't know I grabbed both my rags. Anyways, just grab it, give it a nice wiggle and pull. Like that. You can work it off the pressure plate and slowly lower it as you pull it off. Alright, trans is out. Well, that's a big clip for nothing. But now that we've got our transmission out, our first thing to do, there's 6 12 mil pressure plate bolts that you will need to remove. And that will give you access to your flywheel bolts. You may need to put a breaker bar on the crank pulley to where it keeps it from spinning, so you can crank the flywheel bolts loose, because they are like 70-80 foot-pounds of torque up in that range. What I usually like to do, crack them all loose before I actually go removing them, so it makes it a little easier. Not gonna lie. Oh, I guess I am lying if I said I haven't done this in car before, because I did do this on my 240. Bam. There's our clutch and pressure plate. Alright, you know, I'm a dummy. I just realized something. I've been talking about removing the flywheel. I don't know why I'm not replacing it. I don't have to remove it. We don't need the torque wrench. So now we're gonna go grab our other clutch and our alignment tool. All right, before you install your clutch, yes, it's used, blah, I know it's good. It was just in another car. I just didn't use it because, like I said, I wanted this to be as stock feeling as possible. But what you'll do, spray your flywheel with some brake cleaner, just get it cleaned off, rub it with a rag and rub it clean. Don't try to rub any debris, whatever, off of it. You'll always be able to tell if you didn't wipe it enough because it kind of like clouds up. Now, you got your clutch and your clutch alignment tool. The side that sticks out is always your flywheel side. As you can tell, there's no room for it to sit the other way. Push it in, push your clutch up. Now, you'll take your pressure plate and you'll try to look on the edges where your dowels are to the next bolt to see approximately which one you should sit it on. I usually look to see the two large gaps. Alright, small gap at top. Should be fairly easy. Just like that. Now, usually when I tighten it down a little bit, I'll move this up ever so slightly to center it, as it does sag a little bit on its own. That's just to verify that your clutch is aligned and your transmission shaft will go in here much easier. Yes, you always want to check this, make sure it's loose. Now your torque spec is 27 to 32, so I always do either middle or high end with the Harbor Freight torque wrench. Perfect. So now, got our mat down. We're just gonna jack it up so it won't fall and get any more out of position than it already may be. Perfect. Alright, now I'm gonna let the front of the car down after I get this up in here where it isn't gonna fall off. It's always good to look up front so you can see your angle that you're getting in there at. What we're trying to do is make this as even as possible before we try to push it on. And it never works on camera, so I'm gonna tune you guys out while I painfully take care of this. Alright, so sorry, I'm pretty winded from lifting my arms up under there. I feel like an idiot. I did this exact thing last time. It's because of the harness I got in there. What it was, the battery ground cable for the starter power, it was stuck in between the bell housing and the pressure plate, and that's why it kept going in and pushing itself out. As soon as I pulled that out, boop, went right in. Man, my luck. Well, so I think the only other tip I may have for this job, when you're reinstalling the trans mount itself, sometimes it's easier to loosen the two 12 mil nuts that are on the bottom side of the trans mount 2 cross member, as it'll give you a little bit of wiggle room to make sure that you can get them bolts in there finger tight first before you torque them down, because it is so easy to strip them out just thinking you got it, turning it a quarter turn and ruining the threads. I mean, I've done it countless times and I've learned my lesson. Finding that you can do that with the trans mount. Where you jack the transmission up matters. Jack it up towards the engine after you have your bell housing bolts on, as the jack won't pull the trans side to side, so to speak, and you'll be much easier to line the trans crossmember bolts up. Other than that, like in my issue, don't let your starter battery cable ground get in the way. Make sure you move it out of the way, which I thought I did, and don't forget to put it in the bell housing bolt at the top when you reinstall. If you do it to the one to the right of the bell housing bolt, you'll push your harness too far to the side and it will rub and melt against your exhaust manifold. Ask me how I know. So anyways, I'm not going to show you the rest because it's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, it all goes in the same way it came out, especially after the trans is in. That's really the hard part. It's all walk in the park after then. But to get the trans the rest of the way on, I did undo the intake pipes because they will hold your engine farther forward so you can get more angle. I'm not sure if that helped, as I did find the ground eyelet or terminal after the fact. If you guys have any questions, anything I may not have covered, drop it below. I'll do my best to answer you as fast as possible, as I do see my YouTube pretty frequently. Other than that, if you guys like what you see, drop a subscribe below and stay tuned for more content, and we'll see you next time.